Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to have a look at another beer released on the 16th of August 2019 through the Små Partiers in Systembolaget here in Sweden. So this beer is another half Swedish, half American offering, and we're going to go to Gothenburg once again for the Swedish side of things, or Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, and we're revisiting one of my favourite Swedish craft breweries. So we're going to go to Dugges Bryggeri once again, and we're having a taste of the ginger, which they're describing as an Imperial Sour, and this one is a collaboration that comes to you from Other Half in Brooklyn in New York. So this beer comes in at 8% ABV, and it's one that was pretty hyped actually. Now, I always get excited when it comes to the Dugges beers. I pretty much try everything new that these guys release because, you know, to be honest with you, any style that you try from these guys tends to be pretty damn good. But this one, I'm really not sure what to expect from. I've heard it's got two types of ginger and it's got some lemon in it. Some places are describing it as a sort of strong Berliner Weiss, but honestly, no idea what to expect from this one. But this is a brewery that really can throw up some surprises for you. And as well, with Other Half, this is a brewery that I know do some very high quality beers, but I've never been able to do a dedicated review to them yet, so that's definitely something that I want to do in the future. But really looking forward to trying this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. I'm curious to see what it has in store. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries before we open up the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done both from Dugges Bryggeri and from Other Half Brewing. No doubt I will add some more from both in the fairly near future, and like I say, I hope I can do some dedicated reviews to Other Half Brewing. I know some of their beers have made it to the UK, so maybe that'll be a possibility. But there's all the usual social media in there. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the American beers. This beer review will appear in both of those, of course, because it's half and half. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to the brewery histories then. We'll kick off with Dugges Bryggeri, since these guys are the home brewery. So as I've told you before, Dugges Bryggeri are based in Landvetter, which is very close to Gothenburg Airport, and you'll find this on the kind of northeastern outskirts of the city. But the brewery was established originally back in 2005 in Mölndal, which is kind of to the southeast-ish, mainly to the south of Gothenburg itself, but it was established back in 2005 by Mikael Engström Dugge. But the brewery really outgrew their original facility and they moved to Landvetter back in 2010. But the older brewery had a capacity of only 1,500 hectolitres of beer per year, but the new brewery started off with a capacity of around 8,000 hectolitres per year, and they have scaled that up significantly from what I understand, and this is one of the more recognisable Swedish craft breweries when it comes to exports. By no means are they the biggest, but you will find their beers in a good number of countries throughout Europe these days. But over the years they've become very well known for their fruit and sour beers. Of course, the Tropic Thunder is quite a well known one, and my personal favourite is the Mango Mango Mango, but I think technically that's a sour IPA. Recently they've also been investing heavily in their barrel aging programme as well. The Boom Barrel is one of my favourite beers that I've had from these guys, this beautiful barley wine that they did. They've also been doing a good few IPAs and things like that recently. The Fresh and the Crush were ones that come to mind, and they were using a little bit of rice in the malt base as well, which really worked out very nicely too. In my opinion, they're also a very good stout producer. The Idiot is their classic one that they do, and of course their coffee stouts that they were doing with the company over in Bristol as well. The name's gone right out of my head now, but these guys, in my opinion, are one of the best coffee stout producers in the world. They did have a partnership with Hunter and Son, that was it, with Hunter and Son from Bristol, and they did also have a partnership with a coffee roastery here in Sweden too, so hopefully the coffee stouts are something that they continue. But some of the best coffee stouts I've had have been from Dugges Bryggeri. But like I say, probably at the moment I would say these guys are probably my favourite Swedish brewery, and they've always been one of my favourites. But this is a brewery that you definitely want to check out if you find yourself interested in Swedish craft beer. Pretty much any style that you get from these guys, they do some pretty good stuff actually. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Dugges Bryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn a little little bit more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the video description below, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on there. So anyway, on to the American side of my beer notes then. So Other Half Brewing. As I mentioned to you as well earlier on, these guys are from Brooklyn in New York, and they were founded back in 2014 by Samuel Richardson and Matt Monahan. So Matt had worked as a line cook and in kitchens for a number of years, and during that period he got really into home brewing, and eventually he decided to go for it and make that his main career. Samuel, on the other hand, had studied food science in Oregon with a special focus in fermentation science, and he'd worked in various breweries before he got involved in starting Other Half. So at the moment, Matt manages the business side of the brewery, while Samuel's the brewery operations manager, and he's also involved in some recipe development as well. But the brewery have grown very, very quickly over the last few years, and they've now got their tap room on Centre Street in Brooklyn too. In 2018, they purchased the former brewery of Nedlow Brewing in East Bloomfield in the Rochester area, and this has allowed them to get their beers a bit further afield than before, and they're also going to be starting a sour beer program as well, from what I understand. I think that might be the reason that you've seen the likes of Harry at Blue Nose Beer Reviews and Craig at Kent Beer Reviews and these guys doing some reviews of the Other Half beer. So I'm really hopeful that when I go to Scotland soon after filming this video, actually, that I'll be able to review some more Other Half beers for you. But like I say, you know, I've told you before, there's a lot of really good breweries opening up in the greater New York area, I guess you could say. There's a lot of them in Long Island City and stuff like that too, and Other Half are probably one of the better known ones from Brooklyn itself these days. But yeah, a very good brewery, and one that I do hope I can do some dedicated reviews for over the next little while. But yeah, let's leave it at that for the brewery histories just now. If you want to learn more about Other Half Brewing, you can check out the brewery website in the description below again, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that too. But yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer then. So as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is an 8% Imperial Sour, although I have seen some places referring to this one as a you know, a very strong Berliner Weiss actually. From what I gather, Omnipollo were the ones who introduced Dugges Bryggeri to Other Half, and they went over there and brewed a big Imperial Stout, and then when Other Half came over to Sweden, they brewed this one. So yeah, they have done a couple of collaborations together. But it says on the side here, together with our friends at Other Half in New York, we brewed this fully packed and spiced up big sour that is as easy as 1, 2, 3, one beer. 2 breweries, 3 types of ginger, and a touch of lemon root. So yeah, I told you lies at the start of the video then. This one has 3 types of lemon in it, not just 2. But yeah, there you can see. They always put these different little hop flower symbols on their beer. One of the things that always seems to be the case, I always get Dugges beer bottles when I order them through the service on Sustainable. I always get ones that have got a little rip here. I've never had you know, a properly intact Dugges label, and it's only this brewery that that happens with. I've no idea why. Plain bottle cap on this one, as you can see, and there is one of the other Dugges Bryggeri symbols there as well, and it says on the side, of course, sour root since 2005. And like I said, this, to be honest, most of the first beers that these guys were doing, from what I understand, they had a few different lagers and things like that, but the thing that really made Dugges, the name for Dugges Bryggeri, was their fruit beers and sour beers. I mean, that's what I always saw from these guys. The Black Currant, and I think the Tropic Thunder might actually have been the first beer that I ever reviewed from them, to be honest. So yeah, but like I said, this one, oh, we can get the last of it in, why not? Like I said, this one is an 8% Imperial Sour, and yeah, so you can see there was a little bit of smoke on the opening of when we opened it up, but this one, the head has just completely disappeared on that. I mean, it was a kind of creamy colour, to be honest with you, but you know, there really wasn't much to it. It's just completely disappeared, and usually that tends to happen actually with sour beers that are a bit higher in alcohol, to be honest. I've noticed that as a little bit of a trend, particularly with some of the Bryggeriet ones that I quite often drink. So yeah, that's another brewery that you want to check out close to me here in Lund in Skåne in the south of Sweden is Bryggeriet. Very, very good sour beer brewery actually. But as you can see with this one then, this is poured quite a dark sort of golden straw colour. It's nice actually. If I hold it up to the light, it does have a good little bit of haze to it. There is a little bit of transparency. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see the level of transparency to this beer. I can see the shadows there, but not overly clear. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall, it looks pretty nice and not unexpected for a sour beer, to be honest. Sour beers can be a variety of different colours, but if it's just got ginger and stuff in it, then this is kind of what you'd expect, to be honest. So yeah, let's take a look at that aroma and just see how we get on. Nothing overly surprising about the appearance of this beer. And straight away, it's ginger that pops out at you. Big surprise there. So yeah, it actually smells like quite a complex ginger. I mean, you know, ginger, when I think about it, my mum never really made gingerbread men biscuits for me when I was younger. I think I was never, in fairness though, I was never really into biscuits, or cookies as the Americans would call it. I was never really into that, to be honest. But the ginger of this one jumps out at you straight away. Ginger is something that I've really got into when I was a little bit older. I'm sure that my gran used to give me like ginger, Edinburgh Rock ginger flavour, and I always used to quite like it actually. They always used to give us these, I think the American equivalent of that is like saltwater taffy, but it might be something completely different. But I really like how that all kind of comes together. I mean, to me, this beer, it's a little bit nostalgic for me. The ginger flavoured Edinburgh Rocks, that's what it really smells like. So yeah, obviously you're going to get a lot of ginger out of this one. I don't know enough about ginger really to tell you the different what the different things would smell like. I would be guessing, just from my science background, that different gingers that are grown in different soils will taste a little bit different, and that's, you know, it's just chemistry that. It's the same with different hops that are grown, the same type of hop that's grown in different countries. It would be exactly the same because ginger is a root, of course. But I really like how I really like the aroma of this one underneath that ginger. And the ginger, to be honest, to me, it comes off as being a little bit sharp. So maybe you can detect the lemon in here quite easily, and it's not the sharpest of lemons, in fairness. It is actually quite a juicy lemon that comes out of this one. It does have that typical sharpness that you would expect of a lemon, but to me the lemony side of things comes across as being a little bit more juicy, if that at all makes sense. You can pick up a little bit of a sort of grassy, slightly hoppy quality to this beer. So maybe they've used some Hallertau or Titnanger or something like that in here. Maybe a bit of Centennial, of course, if they've added lemon to the beer. So you can pick up a little bit of a floral, grassy kind of thing to this beer, but that's not too prominent. So juicy lemons, grassy kind of hops, a lot of ginger in there. From the malt base, other than that, you can pick up a little bit of brown sugar in there for me. It's almost got a little bit of a kind of butterscotchy type aroma to it, this beer as well. You can pick up a little bit of sweetness under there, and it is quite like butterscotchy, fudgy. Maybe there's even a little teeny, almost vanilla quality to this one. Definitely a little bit woody for me as well. There is a little touch of a kind of woody quality, and maybe that's where the vanilla's coming from. It might be oaky, vanilla-y. But yeah, interesting aroma that. There's almost a little bit of a kind of appley, peary type thing to this beer as well, just those light orchardy type esters. But yeah, when the beer's called ginger, obviously your nose is going to be pretty saturated with ginger, but there are a few other kind of subtleties in there. So a little bit of wood, a little bit of an almost butterscotchy fudge type thing to this one, a little bit of vanilla almost, and some kind of grassy floral hop, and the juicy lemon of course too. So, you know, the aroma of this one, not surprising again. So appearance, aroma, not surprising. Let's just have a taste of it and see how we get on with this. So this one is the ginger, an 8% Imperial Sour from Dugges Bryggeri in Landvetter, just outside of Gothenburg in Sweden, and Other Half Brewing, who are from Brooklyn in New York. Let's get stuck into this one. Sláinte, skål. Now I will say straight away, I do like that. The first thing that this has made me think of is some of these chili beers that I've had before, because it has that same sort of heat, if you like, that same sort of spicy heat that you get down the kind of back tube, my biology words are going from the, almost like it goes down your esophagus a little bit. Down here you just get a little bit of that slightly spicy heat coming off of this, which is nice. And I don't remember ginger being like that. I always just remember it being kind of a bit spicy on the tongue when I was eating the Edinburgh Rock and things like that. But this is nice how it goes together actually. So oddly enough, if you like your chili imperial stouts, this might be one that you quite enjoy as well. Strange thought that came into my head. And you know, this is one of the things. Dugges, they've added tonka beans. They were the brewery that introduced me to tonka bean flavours in beers, which incidentally are beautiful. I've had beers from Bryggeri de Molen involving those since then. They added, I think they were the first one that I found that put pine needles in their beer, and that beer basically, it tasted like a nice toothpaste or something. You know, Dugges are very, very good at adding adjuncts to beer as well. And this is what I was saying to you earlier. This brewery, pretty much anything they touch seems to turn to gold these days. So, I mean, this beer gets a thumbs up from me. And this is something else that is quite unusual and very different from these guys in my experiences so far. So, yeah. Let's try and break this flavour down for you a little bit then. What you're going to notice with this beer is that the malty, normally where you'd find the malty side of things in your tongue, I was saying in the aroma I could pick up a little bit of butterscotch and all of this kind of thing. You don't really get much of that at all, to be honest with you. The middle of your tongue is very, very smooth in this one, and it's not flat like pale malt. It almost has a little touch of sweetness to it. It's almost as if the beer has like a slightly vanilla base there, but it's not, the flavour that you're getting out of that is not strong enough to be vanilla, to be honest. That's the really interesting thing about it. It has that sort of wheaty vanilla type smoothness in the middle of the palate, but it's not really giving you that flavour. And when you take the beer in, it comes in and it's actually quite sharp, and then it just smooths out nicely. You get the juicy lemons coming out of this one initially, and it's almost tart and sour in the beginning, and then it just rolls out a little bit. You get the spice down your sort of chest cavity, if you like, and then you start to get a kind of smoothness in the middle of your palate there. And like I say, I think it's fair to describe it as woody. It's this sort of woody flavour that just blankets the middle of your palate, and towards the front of it, it starts to become more vanilla-like. But it's a very minimalist flavour that it doesn't dominate the beer. That's a really interesting aspect to this one. I don't know if they've added vanilla to this one. I don't think it's said on the thing. It just says, oh, it contains barley malt and wheat, so I'm guessing that it'll just be the wheat that's giving you that, so it will be a wheat base. So maybe that's why people are listing this one on Untappd as a Berliner Weiss. But I mean, I don't know if I would describe this as a Berliner Weiss. Granted, I've never had one that's up at 8%, but it doesn't. The sort of wheaty notes in this one aren't quite as strong as you'd expect, but in fairness, again, if you've got a higher booze content, basically you're going to have to put more malt in it, and that might be the reason why it feels so smooth in the centre of your palate. So yeah, a few interesting points to make about this. The basic takeaway message from this is that this is a very, very unique beer. It's a little bit difficult to get your head around this, but you will notice the quality of this straight away. Yeah, is it an Imperial Berliner Weiss? I'm not quite sure. But I like how this goes together. So yeah, that really smooth, woody, oaky type flavour in the middle of your palate. Obviously wheat from what they've added to the beer. A little bit more vanilla at the front. That's blanket in the middle of your tongue. There could be a very, very light touch of a sort of syrupy biscuit type thing coming out of this one, syrupy cookie. You can pick out a little bit of that in the middle of the palate, but definitely not the butterscotchy notes that I was picking out from the aroma in this one. Back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of a slightly sweet earthiness to this one, and then as you come further forward it does become a little bit more grassy. There's not really a floral character to this one, but around the very front curve of the palate you've just got a little bit of that lighter kind of grassy thing in there. I don't know, I mean, I would be guessing that they've added I would be guessing that they have added hops to this one. I've noticed recently that some breweries have stopped adding hops to the Berliner Weiss, but from what I understood, there was always a little bit of you know, Hallertauer and Anger hops added to them, and you do get a little bit of that earthiness, that sort of German noble earthiness in the back corner of your palate, and also some grassiness there, but it doesn't say Humle on the side of the bottle, so maybe there isn't hops in here. So that's maybe a little bit of a kind of placebo effect, because I'm used to those flavours being there. But yeah, the way that this beer makes its transitions is really nice. The ginger, it's odd enough because the ginger doesn't kind of sit there on the palate. The ginger flavours are kind of, it's in the back of the throat and down your chest cavity. It's strange that way. I mean, it's just unusual to have ginger flavours come out in that way. So for me, there isn't really much ginger on the tongue on this one. I mean, at the very front of the palate, if you like, you've got, as I always say, you get that little oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters come out of the beer. And for me, this one, that's where the sharpness, the tartness in the beginning comes from, and it'll be Lactobacillus or Brettanomyces that's in here. But you can feel that sort of rolling across it comes in at the start of the beer, it rolls out and then smooths out in the middle of your palate, becomes sweeter. But you've got these sharper lemony notes in the front of your palate there on that juicy part of the beer, but then later on, the further you go into the aftertaste, it evolves to be a little bit of that kind of grassy ester. But definitely the lemons in this beer are really quite juicy and fruity. For me, the ginger side of this beer, it's a bit hard to do. They've added 3 types of ginger to it, and the ginger in this comes across to me as being quite a spicy ginger, to be honest. And ginger by definition is a spice, so that's a stupid thing to say, but I don't get, maybe I'm just not appreciating it, how I don't really see a level of complexity there. The ginger for me comes out in the chest cavity. If it came out on the palate, you would maybe detect the different subtleties between the different types there. So I don't know on this one. It is an interesting beer, and it's one, I think it's one of the ones that's maybe a bit hard to get, if you like, an Imperial Sour, but it's interesting and I do like it. I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. I'd love to try it on tap and just see if that makes a difference to it, because bottle conditioning versus tap is always a little bit different. But overall, it's a nice beer. I don't know whether you can class this as an Imperial Berliner Weiss, but the basic thing to take away, like I say, a nice beer. It's almost, and as I say, it has that spicy quality that you'd expect of like a chili porter or a chili imperial stout. So yeah, unusual this one, and you know, Dugges are great for throwing up things like that, and that's what you want on a YouTube channel about beer after 1800 videos. You want things that are going to make you to think a little bit. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, I would describe this beer as mid-bodied generally, but this is quite a heavy-bodied, full-bodied sour for me. I always find the sour beers to be a little bit lighter. You need a different scale for sour beers, in my opinion. Carbonation is very smooth. The beer leans towards the oily side of the mouthfeel. You've got a nice little bit of sharp tartness, particularly in the beginning, but the beer really makes that transition later on and smooths out to just have a nice, almost sweet smoothness to it, which I really, really like. There's a teensy little bit of hoppy bitterness to this beer, but like I say, I'm not sure if there are hops in this beer. That could be placebo effect. I think you'd be lucky to get 5 or 10 IBUs out of this beer. You've got a nice spiciness to it. Like I say, mainly that comes out in the chest cavity, if you like. You can, in fairness, when I think about it, you can feel a little bit of that spice in your mouth, but for me it mainly comes out in the chest cavity, and I think that's one of the things. The ginger flavour that's in there, you can, as I say, you can pick it up on the tongue, and it's almost like the full base of the beer is infused with it, but I don't think you can appreciate the full complexity of there being 3 types of ginger in this beer. I think it's one of these things that the spice sort of saturates your palate a little bit. But I mean, overall, it's an interesting beer, this one. I'm glad that I tried it, and as I say, a lot of people were talking about this one. So it gets a thumbs up from me. It's something unusual, and Dugges are pretty good at adding the adjuncts into these beers. I'm not sure about Other Half. I need to try a few of their beers as individual reviews, but I've enjoyed this one, and I suppose that's the main point of doing these reviews, so we'll leave it at that. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Dugges Bryggeri and from Other Half, and you know, do let me know of any other ginger beers or ginger sour beers that are out there. That would be interesting to try. I mean, ginger beer crabbies and things like that, it is very you know, it's a very popular thing actually. In fairness, now that I think about it, the beer does remind me of a slightly more alcoholic version of crabbies, but it's been interesting to review this one. We'll leave it at that, and thank you for watching my reviews. Until the next time, slange just now, I'll catch you guys later. This is the Ginger, an 8% Imperial Sour beer from Dugges Bryggeri in Landvetter outside of Gothenburg in Sweden, and Other Half Brewing from Brooklyn in New York. Slange at school, make sure you try this beer and try some beers from both of these breweries.